We're on set of Sage Takes Time podcast. And on this beautiful set that was built by our beautiful art director, we have brought books that mean something to us.
Yes.
What did you bring? We brought a lot, but we've chosen 2 each.
Yeah, we've chosen 2 each for this episode of Books Take Time. And
and Books Take Sage as well.
And the books that were most meaningful to us. So I'll start with a book that I literally just finished last month. It's called A Woman Is No Man by Etaf Rum. Mm-hmm. She's a Brooklyn-based Palestinian author who writes of a very relatable experience for Arab women through the lens of women of different generations, all part of the same Palestinian family, that both are born and raised in Palestine or born and raised in New York, and the cultural and generational shifts that take place as each one of these women try to find agency in their life and try to get the courage to make their own choices that break away from the cultural expectation. I cannot tell you how quickly I read this book. It was such an insanely moving tribute to our own experience, and I feel like this has become Arab girl canon. Mm. But this for me is like you cannot miss this book. It's very emotional. It's very true. It is a work of fiction, but it feels like a beautiful collection of accounts of these women's real lives.
Mm-hmm. What touched you most about it? Like, what's like a takeaway or?
It really added a lens to my own life that made me ask about which cultural expectations am I blindly abiding to, and what do I do in my life for others from a place of like fear, tradition, and expectation. Because there are things as women that we're told we should be and ways that we are told we should be that's so deeply ingrained and deeply conditioned in us. And even as a woman who is of Arab descent, but I grew up in Europe, I found straddling the 2 cultures very difficult, and I'm shocked at my own self-inflicted expectations of who I'm supposed to be when I'm in a relationship, who I'm supposed to be in relation to my parents and how I treat my parents, who I'm supposed to be as a woman point blank in the culture when I'm engaging with lots of different people. This was something that really made me take a second look at that and question what comes from an assumption of expectation and what really comes from my desire to do it authentically.
White Teeth. What I loved about this book when I first read it was that it's really about like the immigrant experience and the idea of cultures that are very mixed in ethnicities and communities that have people from different places, different belief systems, different values, different generations can come together, and the challenges of that and how that really affects people's lives and their journeys as they get older. And that's why I related to it. Even though this is set in the UK and it speaks of like the immigrant experience there and different families across generations, I really related a lot to it, to my own experience being an immigrant in the US and how that really affected like shaped my identity and my upbringing and presented a lot of challenges and learnings. It's a book that I feel like speaks to a lot of our different experiences, especially in places where you come across people of different ethnicities and different backgrounds.
The outstanding debut of the millennium.
Well, I mean, when was this published? Maybe like early 2000s?
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah. What else you got there?
Next book. Okay, my next book is called The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. And it follows a young British woman who is in a seemingly endless spiral of misery and regret and self-deprecation and darkness. And in her darkest moment, where she chooses to potentially unalive herself, That's literally where the book starts. And she ends up going on a journey of self-discovery and of like a series of experiences that teach her about the beauty of life and of her own potential and the endless options that are always there for us as people, if we just find the courage to make a different choice.
Wow, but that's very powerful.
I found it really, really enlightening and really inspiring. I was really sad when it ended. That doesn't happen with a lot of books, but I was very sad when it ended because, I don't know, I loved it. It really did shift the way that I was perceiving my own life, my choices, the choices that I made, and the maybe unhealthy pattern of thinking that you don't have a choice in so many things in life, especially the things that make you unhappy. And so it inspired me to take a look at my life in a different way. And I couldn't recommend it more. It's a work of fiction, but it's incredibly relatable and really beautiful.
Yeah.
What you got? Bam!
It just so happens that these books are kind of hefty. I didn't choose them to like show off or anything. This is The Map of Love by Ahdaf Soueif.
Beautiful.
I can write like essays about Ahdaf Soueif. She's amazing. The reason I chose this book is because there was a point in my life when I realized that I had been reading a lot of Western literature. That's all I had read, really, with the exception of like Naguib Mahfouz in translation, which is very significant, but really kind of you need to like do more. And I felt like I was raised with a lot of like white authors because I was educated in the US. And then at one point I was like, fuck that, I need some more like soul. So I found myself reading a lot of like Black American literature by women, like Maya Angelou or Toni Morrison, things like that. And so at one point I was like, where is the Egyptian like representation? I don't know enough Egyptian authors. And Ahdaf Soueif for me was like such an amazing entry point into this cultural landscape. She is kind of a third culture kid as well. Like she's an Egyptian author, but I'm not sure if she's born and raised in the UK, but she's definitely spent a lot of time there. She's also an amazing like thinker and writer. She's an activist also. She writes a lot of political commentary in places like The Guardian, while also being, this is a novel, it's a piece of fiction. And what I love about the book itself is that it has 3 storylines of women from the same family, but 3 different generations.
Yeah.
Which is, as
Similar.
you know, is like something I really love. I love drawing the lines between women in the same family from different generations and how they're, like you start off with the grandmother, for example, in one place, and then where like the daughter of the offspring, like Al-Hafida, her granddaughter would end up, and how much in life you can experience globally in those 3 generations and how your life can change. So this is about a woman who discovers letters and like trinkets and the story of her mother and her grandmother during different times in Egyptian history. So the daughter, who we start with, I think she is someone that ended up in the US, which is also kind of why I really relate to that. Her mother was a Cairo kid who got married to, she was like an activist and she did all of these interesting things. And then the grandmother was more in the time of the British occupation. So it's a bit of a historical account as well. It has that backdrop of Egyptian history. And so I thought it's so interesting to watch the 3 storylines develop. There's a bit of history in there. There's a lot of politics and activism in there. There's love stories in each of the storylines.
Yeah.
And then how they like seamlessly connect and interweave and then diverge and come back together. And then what you're really following is the youngest woman's journey to rediscovering and reconnecting with her roots and her family and her history. So it's also
totally see how that relates to you, like on a personal level in so many ways.
Yeah, this should be made into a film. I'm really like shocked that it hasn't until now, but it's really, really beautiful the way the stories are weaved together.
Well, maybe we can
Womena production
option the rights.
Ahdaf, I know her. Let's call her.
Ahdaf, where are you?
Where are you?
We want to
Come
make
to
your
us.
movie.
Yeah,
cool. That was Books Take Time. So if you guys That was Sage Takes Books, which it does also.
Yeah.
Both ways work. But yeah, if you guys want more recommendations,
Read.
we're here for it.
Reading is good for you.
Reading. This is all for the book talk.